Yeah, it is a good day to be alive. It's a beautiful summer day, the 1st of September. That's Andy Grammer. And Mike Barrett joining us. It's a weekly chat with the Magic Morning Crew called Good Policies. We talk about the world of insurance. Lord knows I don't understand it much, but thanks for joining us, Mike, to make heads or tails of it. How are you?
I am well. How are you?
Beautiful day outside. We've got Labor Day weekend coming up. Now, leading into this year, obviously you guys will be closed on Monday, right?
Yes, yes. We have. We do tend to be closed on those types of holidays, so we will be taking a 3-day weekend this weekend. But
Well,
that doesn't mean you can't get a hold of us because we are available for emergencies anytime. So.
well, we'll be here with our nose to the grindstone just like every other holiday. Okay, insurance. We've talked an awful lot about homeowners insurance and renters insurance and automobile insurance and the list goes on, life insurance and such. Now, I'm going to use me as a guinea pig. I do this a lot with some of our clients here. You and I know that I've recently had to replace a vehicle, right?
Sure.
And it is an older vehicle than what I've got, but I still want the same coverage on it. Okay, I have full coverage on a car that I own. A lot of people say, "Well, that's kind of foolish, right?"
Not necessarily.
No, it's not. We've learned this from you, and so that's why we're going to continue to have full coverage insurance on my car. But there are folks out there that may have a car that they want to insure. They may or may not be able to, and there may or may not be things in the automotive industry that can be. What do you say we talk about this kind of stuff?
Absolutely. So there are times where a vehicle can become problematic or difficult to get insurance on in terms of getting a personal auto policy. And what do I mean by that? What is a personal auto policy, and how is that different than anything else? Well, anyone like you or myself, Jeff, or anyone really out there, if you have a vehicle, most likely, 99.999% of the time, you're going to have a personal auto policy. And a personal auto policy is just as described. It's meant to insure a vehicle that you personally own, that you use for yourself. And there's different ways that you can use that vehicle in the big realm of a personal auto policy. You can either be driving it back and forth to work less than 15 miles, driving it back and forth to work over 15 miles. You could be driving for business, which we'll get more into in a second. You could be driving it for farm use, meaning this thing sees very little road time. It's mostly in the fields, but does cross roads from time to time. And then there's pleasure use, meaning you don't have a job that you're driving the vehicle to. Could be that you're retired, or maybe you have a company vehicle that you use. So those are some of the fundamental rating options in a personal auto or private passenger auto policy. You can go by both names. Now, there are times where you are exceeding the threshold, the comfort level of that type of policy. And what do I mean by that? There's a couple of triggers that you need to keep an eye out for in terms of insurance and vehicles. If you are getting a vehicle that has a gross vehicle weight of over 10,000 pounds, most likely, not every case, there are some companies that may make exceptions, but most of the time that vehicle, just by default, by being over 10,000 gross vehicle weight, is not going to be eligible for a personal auto policy. And why is that? Well, vehicles that are over 10,000 gross vehicle weight tend to be more of a commercial style vehicle. Think of those Ford F-350s or those Super Duty Chevys and GMCs. Think about those box trucks and things like that. These are vehicles just simply really not meant necessarily. Again, there can be exceptions to be on a personal auto policy, and that's one reason why you would look to get it on a commercial auto policy.
Now, I'd like to ask you a question here, if I could, Mike.
Go ahead.
Okay, not very often did you see this. Remember those old vans that were converted into motorhomes? Like we used to call them the mini Winnies, the mini Winnebagos and stuff like that?
Yeah.
There are certain occasions where that ends up happening to be somebody's daily driver. Now, does that qualify as a camper? Does that qualify as a personal rig?
Right. So camper's a camper. It just depends on how we're rating it. You most of the time can put a camper, even a larger motorhome, on a personal auto policy. And again, that's where we're going into kind of some of those exceptions of usage. So that's why it's really a case by case. But in the general scheme, again, if you're over 10,000 gross vehicle, that's when you really need to be exploring all options to make sure you're going the appropriate way. General rule that we go by is if the VIN, the 17-character VIN, pulls the vehicle information, that's a bit of an indicator that we could probably put it on a personal auto policy. Now, some other things to think about, though, this morning, Jeff, is who owns your vehicle? Do you personally own your vehicle? If so, put it on a personal auto policy. Does an entity own your vehicle, i.e. a corporation or an LLC? If that is the ownership of your vehicle, immediately that is going to be a requirement of putting it on a commercial auto policy, because now it's an entity owning it, not a personal individual. Some other options to think about: do you have lettering on your vehicle? Do you deliver goods and transport goods with your vehicle? Lots of things to think about in terms of maybe you need to be doing a commercial auto policy. And there are times that you may only have one or two vehicles in your household, and any number of these things that I've just described now makes it that you have to have a commercial auto policy. There are ways to put endorsements on a commercial auto policy to give you some of the same benefits that a personal auto policy can provide, like drive other car coverage and things of that nature. That's kind of getting a little deeper than I want to this morning, but that's kind of the general theme today, is just, when a vehicle is or is not eligible or qualified for a personal auto policy.
Well, I've come up with one other question here for the time that we've got, Mike, okay?
Sure.
All right. So let's say we have a lot of folks out there right now that had lost their primary jobs, right? And they've taken on some part-time jobs where they might be delivering people to, say, doctor's appointments or running them to the grocery store and stuff like that. Would that person driving that vehicle need to have a commercial policy, or is there something else that they need to do?
Sure. So a lot of times those types of people are doing volunteer work, so they're not necessarily getting compensated. And even if they are, they may be only getting compensated per mile or for gas reimbursement. So it's not a overly significant thing. That's a case by case. I think many companies in general would be okay with that. It's when you turn into a livery, i.e., a taxi service, that things would change and you would need to explore commercial auto. But if you're doing it out of the goodness of your heart, just being a good neighbor or volunteering in any capacity, usually that can be accepted by many of the companies in a personal auto policy.
Well, that's a good answer there. And folks, this is Mike Barrett with us from Barrett Insurance Agency, this segment called Good Policies. Mike, to wrap it up, obviously folks may have some questions. What would you like to leave our listeners with?
Yeah, if you have any questions whatsoever, the worst thing you can do is not ask, to be totally honest with you. Never get caught into a situation where maybe you have a vehicle that's lettered or over gross vehicle weight that gets into a claim on a private passenger auto policy, and now you're at the potential of having an excluded claim. That's our big focus here. So if you have any questions, always call, and you can call us with questions, 748-5224. You can visit us on Portland Street in St. Johnsbury, get a free home or auto quote, personal auto only, on our website at thebarrettagency.com. Plus, we're on Google, Facebook, and YouTube, all Barrett Insurance Agency.
And Tuesday mornings here with the Magic Morning Crew. Hope you
Absolutely.
guys are staying safe and well, Mike. Hope you enjoy the long weekend. We'll chat with you then what will seem like your Monday.
My Monday, yeah.
Next
It'll be a
week.
lovely Monday.
Enjoy it.
Thank you,
Stay
Jeff.
safe, okay?
You too, sir.
All right. Barrett Insurance Agency, Portland Street in St. Johnsbury. Music coming your way from Marshmello and